So my name's Nicole. I will be the moderator tonight. We are here today to talk about some legal preparations in regards to parents, guardians, caregivers, taking care of those who have autism. So I will not belabor your time any further, and we will go ahead and get started.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated Kappa Zeta Chapter, I want to welcome you to our information session on autism awareness entitled Preparing for Legal Adulthood. Participants should have been muted upon entry. If you notice your mic is not muted, please do so. There will be time at the end of the presentation for questions. Feel free to send your questions via Zoom to the questions participant. If you are watching via Facebook Live, enter your questions in the comments. Lastly, sit back and relax as our presenters provide you with information either you can use or information you can pass on to someone who may benefit. While waiting to start, there were some slides discussing our partnership with Micah's Voice. Here I will elaborate just a little bit more. Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and Micah's Voice have come together to build awareness, strengthen advocacy, and execute fundraisings to support families of children with autism. Micah's Voice is a 501c3 organization which provides community, hope, and financial resources to families affected by autism. Micah's Voice was founded by Sean and Sharonda Stockman. Sean Stockman is one of the lead singers and founders of Voice to Man. The Stockman's Foundation was inspired by one of their twin sons, Micah, who was autistic. Z-Hope is an interactive, holistic, multidimensional outreach program designed to enhance, cultivate, and empower participants to develop health-promoting lifestyle choices across the lifespan. The purpose of this information session is to assist families with preparing for teenagers becoming legal adults. The session will benefit parents, family members, community members, and caregivers. It will include a personal testimony of a parent, as well as provide services to assist with the transition, finding trade programs, and life skills programs. Before presenting our speakers, I want to provide you all with some autism statistics. Prevalence. In 2020, the CDC reported that approximately 1 in 54 children in the U.S. is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed than girls, and autism affects all ethnic and socioeconomic groups, though minority groups tend to be diagnosed later and less often. Early intervention affords the best opportunity to support healthy development and deliver benefits across the lifespan. Causes. Research indicates that genetics are involved in the vast majority of cases. Children born to older parents are at a higher risk for having autism. Parents who have had a child with autism have a 2 to 18% chance of having a second child who is also affected. And over the last 2 decades, extensive research has asked whether there is any link between childhood vaccinations and autism. The results of this research are clear. Vaccines do not cause autism. Third, intervention and support. Early intervention can improve learning, communication, and social skills, as well as underlying brain development. Many children affected by autism also benefit from other interventions, such as speech and occupational therapy. Developmental regression, or loss of skills, such as language and social interests, affects around 1 in 5 children who will go on to be diagnosed with autism, and this typically occurs between the ages of 1 and 3. Associated challenges. An estimated 40% of people with autism are nonverbal. Nearly half of those with autism wander or bolt from safety, and nearly 2/3 of children with autism between the ages of 6 and 15 have been bullied. 5. Caregivers and families. On average, autism costs an estimated $60,000 a year throughout childhood, with the bulk of these costs in special services and lost wage related to increased demands on one or both parents. And lastly, 6. Economic costs. The cost of caring for Americans with autism has reached $268 billion in 2015 and will rise to $461 billion by 2025 in the absence of more effective interventions and support across the lifespan. The majority of autism's costs in the United States are for adult services, an estimated $175 to $196 billion a year. On average, medical expenses for children and adolescents with autism are greater than those without autism, and the passage of autism insurance legislation in all 50 states is providing access to medical treatment and therapy. And now to introduce our speakers. First, we have Mr. Frankie Lloyd. Frankie is a native of Meridian, Mississippi. He received his Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Jackson State University and a Master of Science in Management Information Systems Security from Colorado Technical University. He is currently a security manager at one of the largest defense contractors in the world, Raytheon Technologies. He has over 14 years of experience designing and deploying computer systems and applications for Raytheon intelligence and space systems. He also develops and implements electronic workflows for various industrial security processes. In his free time, he is an adjunct instructor in computer science at Parker University. Mr. Lloyd is active with multiple professional organizations, including the Society of Industrial Security Professionals, the American Society for Industrial Security, and the National Defense Industrial Association. In 2019, he contributed to Raytheon Technologies, winning the James S. Cogswell Outstanding Industrial Security Achievement Award. His proudest accomplishment is being the proud father of Michael Matthew. In 2007, Michael was diagnosed with Fragile X syndrome and autism. Since diagnosis, Mr. Lloyd has been on a mission to aid and support families with children with physical, intellectual, and behavioral disabilities. In 2016, he started AFX DreamWorks, a nonprofit corporation that operates exclusively for educational and charitable purposes. The mission of AFX DreamWorks is to assist individuals with physical, social, and intellectual disabilities and their families. He is also a member of the board of directors for Buddy League, a unique sports baseball league for children with physical, intellectual, and behavioral disabilities. Mr. Lloyd is a life member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, technology director for the Gulf Coast region, and the current president of the Omicron Sigma alumni chapter in Lewisville, Texas. Next up is Ms. Natalie J Evans. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Puzzle Piece Kids and Express Yourself Developmental Therapy Center, speech and behavioral therapy private practices that specialize in early language development for pediatric patients. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in speech pathology from Xavier University of Louisiana, a post-baccalaureate education in behavioral intervention in autism from the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and a Master of Science in Speech and Hearing Science from Tennessee State University. She specializes in early language development, behavior intention, autism spectrum disorder, developmental delay, life skills implementation, and parent empowerment. She is the author of Help, My Kid Isn't Talking, A Parent's Guide to Communication. And last, we have Judge Danielle T. Diaz. She is a native of the Dallas area. She attended school in the Lancaster Independent School District. She received a Bachelor of Arts in Government and Sociology from the University of Texas at Austin and a Juris Doctorate from Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston, Texas. Currently, she is an Associate Judge for the 330th District Court in Dallas, Texas, and has held this position since March of 2015. The 330th District Court is a family law court in Dallas, Texas, with Judge Andrea D. Plumley presiding. Prior to being appointed as an associate judge, she worked at the Office of Attorney General in Dallas as an Assistant Attorney General and received the Attorney of the Year Award in 2014. She is an active member of the Upsilon Lambda Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She is currently very active in the Junior League of Dallas. She is an adjunct professor at the University of Phoenix, teaching in the College of Security and Criminal Justice and School of Business. She is married with 2 children and attends church faithfully in Dallas, Texas. She has participated on numerous panels and various speaking engagements throughout the community and continues her activeness in the community. One more thing before we start. We do have a short 7-question survey we would love for you to complete. This code will be shown again at the end of the program for those who miss it. We will also drop the link in the chat. And without further ado, Mr. Lloyd, the floor is all.
Hi, how everybody's doing? Again, you've heard my bio, so I won't go through that again, but my name is Frankie Lloyd. And true, my son, actually his name is Mike as well. And so when I got the call to do this, I was excited about it. So a couple of things to talk about, starting off. They wanted to talk about steps taken and the challenges once a teenager near becoming an adult. And so Micah, my son, is 16. He'll be 17 in October. So we're right at that age where you have to start taking some steps and precautions and things like that to be able to make sure that you can care for your child as they get older. Because once they turn 18, then you won't necessarily they're considered an adult, so you won't be able to be responsible for them. But so there are steps you have to take. So one of the things that I'm currently working on is process of getting established irrevocable trust set up for him, because from all the research that I've done and all of the everything that I've been to, you can't have certain things and assets and things in your name, or they won't be able to get some of the funding and things for them. So one of the things is doing the trust. So therefore, those things are not in their name. So they're allowed to be able to do that. Also, the Texas Hml program, that's another one. If you're not on that, you might want to start doing that now. I know we started about 5, so we've been on about 12 years now. And so those are just a couple of things that you can start off doing initially. Also, the impact on parents' ability to be a part of the decision making. So again, the intellectual state of Micah, even though he's about 16, 17, of course, his state is a lot less than that. And so I've been working with the transitional specialists at the school. I know I've also worked with Dallas Metro Care, and then also looking at some different solutions that I feel is best for him. So I'm very much a part of that decision-making piece, because again, you want to start that early, because once they turn 18, to be honest with you, it's almost too late because they're an adult. And so if they start getting funding or getting assistance from the government, you won't be able to cash their check for them. You won't be able to do anything. They will have to do it themselves. They will have to sign it themselves. And oftentimes our kids are not able to do so. And so it all depends on you, where they are and things like that. So, and looking at that life after high school. And so one of the things that solutions that they are coming with new housing and things like that. They're more like community housing and stuff like that. But they do have different other types of solutions and things like that. So that's the good thing about being in this Dallas metro area, is that there are some new things that are coming on now. But I would suggest you get with your local assistants there to find out if they have those types of facilities surrounding for your kids. One of the most valuable learning things along this journey that I've learned thus far is you start out with, and you also keep the mindset that you don't not necessarily have an autistic kid, but you have a child with autism, because they're a child first. And so they just have all these extra challenges. So I hear that all the time, but that's one of the first things I learned. And 2, it takes a village. All right. Because sometimes it's difficult. Because you're the advocate. And all the things I've done, whether it's, again, like I said, I started AFF Dream Works to help families and things like that, because once I first found out, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. So the first thing I did was started educating myself. And everybody gets to that point when they first find out, is like, what is the outcome going to be? What is life going to be like? And so the first thing you have to do is figure out what it is that you need to do at this point. And so that's one of the reasons why I started the foundation. And I started advocating, because you have to advocate for your child. Because they're not going to be able to necessarily advocate for themselves. And so you have to be that person. And so the one thing that, people, they will ask me, how did you do it, and all these different things. And I just tell them I don't have a choice. There's no choice in having him fail or him not getting what he needs. And so that's the way I look at it. And so I just, take it day by day. Sometimes it's hard. It's difficult. Some days, even, I look like this big, strong guy, but sometimes I sit down and have to cry. Sometimes because of the things that are going on, and you want everything to go well, but that's not true. You see all the autism stuff, you see the commercials, you see all these things that you see on social media. Normally they try to paint the happy picture, but what they don't tell you is when your child has a meltdown and you have to leave work and you have to go to school, and and you get there and he's sitting in the floor crying, having a meltdown, and you have to get him together to calm him down. And so are you going to break down yourself right then, or are you going to do what you need to do to get him where he needs to be, so therefore he can continue his day on with school? And so those are some of the things that happens all the time. And how's that impacted my immediate family? Well, it has really changed my family. It has made them become more aware and more empathetic and more sympathetic and aware of kids and also adults with autism. And so they've been very supportive. That's one of the reasons I love Kristen so much, is because when we met and everything, she embraced Micah as well. And so my village has increased so much that I'm able to do a lot of the things that I do. I couldn't do that without a village. So the most valuable thing that I always tell parents when they first find out is to increase your village, because you will need a village to help, because it is going to be a difficult road. You can do it, but it's going to be difficult, and you won't be able to do it by yourself. So make sure that's something that you do. But also, there is joy too as well. I get a lot of joy because they ask about self-care and things like that. Well, my self-care, I'm a techie, so my self-care is actually creating stuff, whether it's creating websites, whether creating programs, whether it's creating software or flyers or different things, but also helping people. And so I get that enjoyment out of doing things to help people. That's why I'm a part of so many service projects, because that's where my joy comes from. And so you have to do that. And so whatever that is, whatever self-care it is that you need in order to make it through the day or make it through the week, ensure that you're doing that. Because the one thing about that is it will consume you. It has, it's documented, it's ruined a lot of people's relationships and marriages and things like that, because of the stress and all the things that comes with it. And so that's where that village comes in to help, to alleviate some of that, so then you can do the things you need to do for your child or your children. Because I have met people with multiple kids with autism. And the thing about that is, I look at them and ask them how. When people look at me, they ask me how. And I was in Walmart coming through, and the lady she heard Micah. She came over. She said, is she working? She said, I have 5. And I was like, I don't know how you do it. And I just have 1. And one of the things and they talked about Buddy League, another thing that also is Buddy League, and that is T-ball for special needs kids. And it's in the city of Garland. It have some other ones, but that's another outlet too. We do 2 seasons a year, and I started back in 2008 when I first moved here. and we took Micah, and then I've been going ever since. And so to see those kids in there, just out there having fun, no judgment, they get their name called, they get all these things, and just to see the joy on their face, especially when they come by and high five and they know your name and all those things, and they look for you from week to week throughout the seasons, and that helps to renew your energy into I'm doing something right, because oftentimes you may feel like you're not, and so but just keep going, take it day by day, and increase your village, and that's all I have.
Hi, everybody. I am Natalie Evans, and I am going to present you with some resources for parents that are transitioning their kids into adulthood. Our objective tonight is just to provide helpful resources to families and individuals with autism entering adulthood so that they may successfully participate within their homes, schools, and communities. So what I've done is put together a list of resources. Our first one is PACER's National Parent Center on Transition and Employment. This website offers so much information. What I learned from this website that I did not know personally or professionally is when transitioning kids into adulthood, the recommended age is 13. So as Mr. Lloyd was saying, if you wait until 18, you're waiting until it's too late. And this website is giving all sorts of information on how to begin at 13, but no later than 16. It has information about academics, if your child wants to finish high school and go on to college, if your child is finishing high school and transitioning into a vocational program, or into the workforce. So there's lots of information. When clicking around in the site, there are PDFs with a lot of different topics. This one says, transition to adulthood, where do we start? And it gives a lot of information to parents on terms, what's happening in the school, what your child needs, as well as this booklet that I found extremely helpful. It's a 9-page booklet on that site called Mapping Dreams, the Transition to Adulthood. And it's literally 9 pages of, okay, parents, here's where you are, here's what you can do to help your child, here are some additional resources. When looking at employment, there is a checklist and a little questionnaire that you can sit down with your teen or young adults and fill out together. And some of the questions are, what am I good at? What's difficult for me? What kind of work would I like to do? So the person that is looking for employment, they're actually able to sit and think. Just because a job is hiring doesn't mean that that job is for them. So they get to think about what area they want to enter. What do they like doing? What do they see themselves doing for a longer period of time? The second page to that gives a lot more information, such as, am I able to follow directions? Am I able to follow written directions? Do I like to work with people? So they are able to click yes, no, or sometimes, and that helps them to find what employment setting works for them. So our next resource is the Asbergen Autism Network. This website has a lot of the same information as Pacer, but there's a lot more information on social. So we've covered academic, we've covered employment, we've covered the independent living. I think that the social skills aspect of it is huge. And as Mr. Lloyd said, this is a place for you to actually find your village as well if you don't have one, because there are so many support groups for teens, young adults, for parents, for siblings of those with autism. There's really a place for everybody on this website. This website, the company is actually based out of Massachusetts, so there's a lot of in-person in the Boston area. However, there's so many online programs. You don't have to be a resident of that state in order to access these resources. There are so many free webinars there that are specific to autism. There's a daily living series, and the course is Grooming and Healthful Living. That is on April 21st of this year. On April 28th in the Daily Living series, there's a self-care for adults. So these resources are perfect for the teenager that's transitioning, the young adult that may be transitioning from the educational setting into the workforce, the parents of those, the parents of the kids with autism. On May 5th, there's a conflict resolution course. So if you go to this website and you go through the resources, I believe that there is something for everyone here, depending on what you're looking for. So I think that this is a great, great resource. And also with this resource, Mr. Lloyd touched on the trust, and on June 5th, there is a special needs trust series called Planning for Your Future, and it's facilitated by an executive director of accounting and finance and also a social worker. And these events are all free, and they're about 1 hour each. So our next resource is actually local, and I'm very excited about it because it's one of our new partnerships with Puzzle Piece Kids. So we have the bakery Flour, Sugar, and Eggs. And it's funny because when we introduce this to parents, they're like, oh my gosh, my kid can't bake. That is not what we're doing here. We're not baking. We're not decorating. We are actually, Flour, Sugar, and Eggs is a commercial bakery that has a commercial kitchen that actually delivers to Puzzle Piece Kids so that the patients can actually have the experience of filling an order, having client interaction, having customer service, learning customer service skills. So we use our speech therapists as well as our patients so that we can teach them communication skills within the work setting. So there are a lot of resources that show you how to get a job and how to do a job, but we are really, really focused on what to do to keep this job. So some of the things that we've discussed was, what do you do if you don't understand something? If your boss or if your coworker asks you to do something and you don't feel comfortable because you don't know how to do it, how do you express this in the work setting? How do you express if your coworker is angry with you and you don't understand why? What are some things that you can work through so that you don't have a situation? What if there's a situation with an angry customer? What happens when you feel overwhelmed? So our therapists are actually able to work with the patient or with the person with autism within this setting. And because it is an LLC, it's a Texas-based business, this can count as the first employment setting for a person with a disability. So we're very, very excited to have our therapist on board for this customer service experience at Flour, Sugar, and Eggs. There's one more resource before we jump to Love to Know, and that is 29 Acres. 29 acres is a facility that is here in Texas. Here it is. That accepts people ages 16 and up. So I remember a few years ago when this opened, there was a story about it on the news, and this facility or this experience came about for the reasons that we're discussing tonight. There were some parents of children with autism that said, hey, our kids are getting older. What happens to them? We want them to lead independent lives. We want them to be able to work, but there are no resources for kids our age, for kids with our ability levels. So what do? So they put together and they created this 29-acre community. And in this community, the Transition Academy is a 2-year program. So someone ending high school or wanting to go into the workforce, they would live at this facility in their own housing they're able to pick their own floor plan, roommates, the whole 9 yards, and they live in this environment for 2 years with staff that helps them learn to navigate the internet, cook, clean, do recreational events, navigate through a community. There are people on site to bring them to places of worship, and there's people on site to bring them shopping. So they get it's funny because the website said a true adult experience, and I had to laugh about it because I'm like, okay, we're simulating, adulthood in this protected environment. Also, if you are not interested in the 2-year experience, there's also summer experiences as well. Crossroads is in Denton County. It's a very, very small city. When I researched, it said there's a population of 1,300. So a very, very small community. This experience could get pretty pricey depending on the plans that you choose. So scholarships are available. If you go to 29acres.org, they are a nonprofit organization. They do use their donations to help with scholarships. And also you can go there and visit, or you can do virtual visits. You can get more information about this program. And our last resource is lovetoknow.com. And I wanted to end my presentation with Love to Know because one of the biggest things on this website that stuck out for me was the success stories of adults with autism. So, we've covered academics, we've covered employment, we've covered, independent living and activities of daily living. So I think that it's important to know that there are success stories, and you can be a success story with your village, as Mr. Lloyd said, with your family members, with the resources that are provided to you. I read some of the stories, and it just really empowered me as a professional, and, made me want to say, I want to be one of those people that this person is talking about. I want to be able to jump in and help and assist. So I think that I wanted to end on a very positive note with the success stories, as well as the activities that there are there. There's life skills. There's some questionnaires for adults to learn more about themselves. So it's just a great deal of information for families as you transition to your next step. Thank you so much.
Greetings to the members and guests of Zeta Phi Beta, the graduate chapter of Kappa Zeta. Thank you all for having me here today. I am going to do a presentation. The first part of my presentation, I wanted to start it off with talking about a couple of terms, because sometimes we use the terms incorrectly. So I wanted to start off with what is conservatorship custody in Texas, which is mainly used in family court, and that's governed by the Texas Family Code. Conservatorship is a term that is used to describe the legal rights and responsibilities of a parent and or third party. What is guardian and ward in Texas? Guardianship, that's used in probate court, and that's governed by the Texas Estate Code. A guardian is someone who protects and or cares for someone who is incapacitated and unable to care for themselves. The person that the guardian is protecting and or caring for is the ward. A person does not become a guardian, and I want to make sure that everybody's clear on this, because sometimes we use the word guardian and we're misusing it. You don't become a guardian until an application to appoint one is filed with the probate court, a hearing is held, and a judge appoints a guardian, which at that time it creates a guardianship. There are different types of guardianships. The first guardianship that we'll talk about is a guardian of the person. A guardian of the person can be full or it can be limited. And if you are a guardian of the person and you have the full guardianship, you get to decide where the ward will live, whether to limit contact with certain family and friends, what medical or psychological treatment the ward will receive, where the ward can go, what personal rights the ward will have, such as can they drive a car, can they have a cell phone. All of those things are within the court's order. Now, when you have a limited guardian of the person, the court may limit you to certain things. For example, the court may allow you to be responsible for deciding what type of medical care the ward will receive, but the court may let the ward make his or her own decisions about getting married, voting, or driving. The next one is guardian of the estate, which can be full or limited. If you are the guardian of the estate and you have the full right, you have the legal right and responsibility to handle all of the ward's money and other financial affairs. However, you are not personally responsible for the ward's debts just because you are the guardian of the estate. The ward's money is used to pay their bills. And with the court's approval, you get to decide what property the ward is going to buy, which bills to pay and when, how to invest the ward's money, whether or not to enter into a contract to buy or sell property. Okay. The next one is the guardian of the person and estate. Sometimes the court may appoint a person, a guardian, to be over the person and their estate. And if this happens, the guardian has the rights and responsibilities established by the court. Okay. And those could be a whole lot of things that the court can establish in doing that. And a lot of that is in the Texas probate code, and it outlines all of the different things that they can do. Then someone can just have temporary guardianship. And when you have temporary guardianship, it may be used to just address some sort of danger that the ward can be having at the time, and you just need some court intervention just to resolve that issue. And sometimes, so in Texas, a temporary guardianship is in effect for 60 days from the date it is established, unless it is contested in court. Okay. And before deciding if a temporary guardian is needed, the court ensures that certain legal requirements are met. Okay. They make sure substantial evidence the person in question that they have to be incapacitated, that there is some sort of imminent danger to the person or the person's estate, and that there is probable cause indicating the person in question or the person's estate requires an immediate appointment of a guardian. The next slide. It talks about the general powers and duties of guardians of the person. And I don't like to just read the slide, but this section comes from the Texas Estate Code. It comes from Title III, okay, and it comes from Chapter 1151, which talks about the right powers and duties under guardianship. And so what it does is it just lists the duties of the guardians of the person. And just some of the things is basically they have the right to have physical possession of the ward and to establish the ward's legal domicile. They have the duty to provide care, supervision, and protection for the ward, the duty to provide the ward with clothing, food, medical care, and shelter, the power to consent to medical, psychiatric, and surgical treatment other than the inpatient psychiatric commitment of the ward. Okay. They also have the power to sign certain documents that are necessary to facilitate employment of the ward under certain circumstances. The next slide talks about the general powers and duties of the guardians of the estate. And under that one is also under the Texas Estates Code under section Title III, Chapter 1151. And that one, under the estate, they get to possess and manage all property belonging to the ward, collect all debts, rentals, or claims that are due to the ward, enforce all obligations in favor of the ward, bring and defend suits by or against the ward, and access the ward's digital assets. The next slide talks about alternatives to guardianship. Guardianship, it can be a process that is very stressful to individuals, and it can be very costly as well. So there are some alternatives. I know that Mr. Lloyd and Ms. Evans, they talked about some of the resources and some of the different things that are out there. And so these are some more different things. So you can always do a medical power of attorney. A medical power of attorney gives the agent the authority to make medical treatment decisions for you if you become mentally or physically unable to make your own decisions. Then you can always do an appointment of an attorney in fact or an agent under a durable power of attorney. And a durable power of attorney is a general power of attorney, but it continues if the principal becomes mentally or physically disabled or incapacitated. Another thing is you can always do some sort of joint bank account. There are bank accounts where you can have just multiple people on a bank account. You can appoint a representative payee to manage public benefits. Sometimes with Social Security, they have a payee on your benefits. You can also do a creation of a management trust, okay? A management trust is a court-ordered trust created for a ward or an incapacitated person. And a management trust is something that is created under the Texas Estates Code, Chapter 1301, okay? Also, you can do something called a special needs trust, okay? And a special needs trust is a revocable or irrevocable trust established with the assets of the disabled person. And the trust must be established for the person's benefit by a parent, grandparent, legal guardian, or a court or the person. Okay, so you don't have to have a court order to create a special needs trust. And then you can always designate a guardian before the need arises. So you can do that as well. And then there's something also called establishment of alternate forms of decision-making based on person-centered planning. And that is something that is created in the code as well. And it is under section 1357 of the Texas Estate Code. And it's a whole act. It's called the Supported Decision-Making Act, and it governs the Supported Decision-Making Agreement. So that's another alternative to guardianship. Then some more alternatives is just finding someone who will help pay bills. One thing I remember Mr. Lloyd saying is it takes a village, and it does take a village. And so you can always have that. Ms. Evans talked about the different services that are available. You can find community services such as home delivered meals, transportation services, and special services for people with disabilities. You can have a person establish 24-hour shared attendant care and emergency response services if they're available in your area where you live. And just assessing community-based Medicaid waiver programs that the disabled person could be eligible for. And just the different programs that they have as well. Okay. Next slide. And then I just put some different additional resources out there. And these are more resources for guardianship, and so that you can apply for the different guardianship. And it looks like someone's adding those in the chat as well. And then also just additional legal services. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. We will now open it up to the floor as well as the Facebook Live. If you want to either send your questions, type them in the chat box. If you raise your hand, if you are actually here on the Zoom, or if you type them in the Facebook comments, we will get to those questions. Ms. Thomas, you have been asked to unmute.
Yes, I would like to thank everyone for the information, Brother Lloyd, Miss Evans, and Judge Diaz. But I just want to, my name is Vanessa Thomas, and I just want to provide a little bit more, just to sum it out. Y'all did an amazing job. So I just wanted to, because I work in, I'm a service coordinator, so I coordinate services. And Natalie, I've seen your name come across on a few of my, on a few things at work, where I work for a mirror group, so I've seen your name for as in services. But just to sum it all up, if you feel short or trying to figure out this kind of where to start with services, I will highly recommend everyone to check with their MCO, their managed care organization, whether you have Medicaid or just check with your insurance provider and kind of see and go from there. Go from there to see how you can get services going for your kid. Brother Lloyd did mention about the Texas Home Living, the waiver, that program. And there's also additional programs through Health and Human Services. And you can just type in hhsc.state.tx.us or HHSC waiver program. There are additional programs in addition to, there are additional waiver programs in addition to the Texas Home Living waiver that you can see which your scholar may qualify for. And And also on the Health and Human Services website, they have different sessions that you can kind of sign up for, and you can kind of go through things just to see different classes and trainings to see what you can qualify for and see what you can do. But those who may have Medicaid at this moment in time, they are offering oh Lord, we are approving the kids for
ABA therapy.
thank you, ABA therapy. So if you have kids that may need ABA therapy, I know that right there has been a game changer for a lot. So if you don't have it through your actual medical insurance provider, and if you have Medicaid, that's something that's kind of going on there. So I know they have their everybody have their special interests, but if you have anything else extra to add or have any questions or whatnot, please reach out to me or these lovely people. I know Natalie does a lot with speech therapy. So if y'all have any, I just wanted to add that. I'm sorry. I'm going on mute now. Bye.
And we do have a question in the chat for Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, is there a class family members can enroll in to become more knowledgeable about how to care for other family members with autism?
There are some resources you can find online. One quick one was the first one that came to mind was the Autism Certification Center.org, and they provide like classes and stuff that helps with providers at home, after school programs, even teachers supporting childcare. But there's a few of them out there for that. But I will tell you the best source will be to be around that family member. Because that's how you're going to get to know them, because even though there's like some general stuff about children with autism, they're still children and they are different, and they have their own individual challenges and things like that. So the best class to be a teacher is going to be around that individual and that family.
Thank you. And we have another question. It says, along with Jessica, okay, so we answered the first part. Are there classes for ministers looking to support families, VBA, Sunday school? So that question is in the chat for any of the three presenters who would like to take that.
I don't know if I'm not sure if there are classes, but I do know that certain churches, they do put on special needs VBA. I took Micah for several years when he was younger. And I remember it's right over here in Garland, and they did it every summer. They would do it for like 2 to 3 weeks, I think it was, and they would take the same thing that every other church does, but they would tailor it for the special needs kids or the kids with autism. And so I would suggest reaching out, maybe looking at some of those that have the Vacation Bible School for that, and then but I'm not sure if there are really any classes, so to speak. But any other panelists, if you guys know.
So we do have another question in the chat. It says, I am a parent of a son who is a senior in high school. I am late in the session seeking help. I have private insurance. I have had minimal support from family and school. At this point, what's the best place to start?
I'll answer that. First, do you have an evaluation? So the first thing that you want to start with is an evaluation. And your doctor most likely is going to give you a referral to Children's, which we all know Children's is busy. And so that is going to take anywhere from, I'm going to say probably 6 months to a year just to get in to have your child evaluated. And so private insurance will not take care of a private evaluation, but you can always go in and get a private evaluation. It's going to probably cost about $1,500, but it depends on how fast you want the service. And the best thing about dealing with a child that's autistic is early intervention. So I would say private insurance, you want to start with that evaluation. And also, I just want to add this part as well. Beginning January 1st of 2022, Governor Abbott signed last year. He signed something. I'm not quite sure because I don't think it was. They don't classify it as a law, but he signed some sort of thing where it says that all insurance companies, if you have a diagnosis of autism, then you are automatically the insurance company cannot deny you certain services. Whereas before, they could deny you the services. So if you have private insurance, you want to take advantage of that private insurance and start off with your evaluation. It may cost you, but it'll be worth it.
Also, do research. Get on the internet. Google. Start researching everything you want to know and ask, and start finding the local services. And also start with your company. They may have, I know mine does. They have and I'm trying to think of the name of it, but there's in our benefits, there's actually a site we can go to, and one of those services is about autism, whether you have a child or an adult, and they have services and stuff like that, and so you can start there too as well. Some of the autism groups that we just talked about, Texas Autism Association, and things like that, or even some of the national organizations, sometimes they have contacts with the local affiliates there that can actually help you and get you to where you need. And then also school, like you said, you got to have a diagnosis. I know with children, she's with Children's now, but she goes back and forth between Children's and UT, but Dr. Patricia Evans, and I'll have them put her information out there. She is one of the best neurologists in the city. It does take 6 months to get an appointment because every time we go, we make an appointment for 6 months out for his next appointment. But she's really good, and she's one of the very few neurologists who specialize with children with autism and everything. So, but I would definitely get on the internet and start looking at all the local resources and start trying to find services for your child.
Okay. Just to piggyback on what Judge Diaz and Fred Lord said, also check into MetroCare, see what MetroCare may have. Again, they mentioned about the waiting list, and MetroCare does have a long waiting list. I see someone mentioning about SSI. If someone has SSI, and if they're connected with the MCO managed care organization, or like a Mirror Group or United Healthcare, sometimes that comes with a lot of help and providers. Come with someone like me that go ahead and help with services and getting the individual set up, like with Miss Natalie with working and trying to get them with speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. So, I mean, it's a lot of resources. I know Health and Human Services, again, on their website, it's a lot of help there, definitely tapping into your insurance, see what they may offer, because as Judge Diaz stated, Governor Abbott, well, not Governor, yeah, Governor Abbott did sign something last year about the insurance company and that, but definitely check with, Lord, I just said it, MetroCare as one of your places to kind of start with.
Yep, that was Metro Care, and she's right. I've dealt with them too as well the past 12 years as well, and they can help too.
Yes.
So yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have 3 more questions in the chat, and we'll take these 3, and then I do want to be respectful to everyone's time tonight. So we'll do these 3, and then we will say our final goodbyes. So let's see. Can't find it. My child is 20. Which guardianship would you recommend, Judge Diaz? And then they just put that they live in a small town.
Okay, and I kind of was responding in the chat. It just depends. So first of all, you want to ask yourself, because when you start seeking guardianship, it's not as easy as you think it is. Because when you seek guardianship, you have to answer to the court. So you may have to provide some sort of accounting to the court every 6 months. And so guardianship is for an individual that is completely incapacitated, that is unable to do things for themselves. So you have to decide, where are you with your child? So if you know that your child is incapacitated, cannot make any decisions, will never be able to live alone, then you would do guardianship. So it depends. So I hope that helps.
The next one is, they may have missed this part, but have you found a sense of community online with parent groups for children with autism that are actually helpful and affirming? So I believe that it's going to be for Mr. Lloyd.
Yes. Like I said, the Texas Autism Association was one that I did. I originally started with. There are so many that have started since then. They actually put on they put on an Easter egg event every year. They put on. They also have a thing with the Shriners. Here in Garland, they'll do a shrine. They do a Christmas thing there. But I can give you some more. I just can't think of them right off the top of my head. But I can tell you, if you do Google them and put Autism Association in Dallas Fort Worth, you'll find them. They will come up, and they are a big help because those I've talked to, to help with even everything from toileting to diet to even medication if you want to do that, and those things. So those groups are very important, and the biggest thing about it is you realize that there's a lot of people dealing with what you're dealing with, and you're not by yourself. And so there are a lot of groups out there, though. Yes.
And then our last one. Do you advise I get guardianship of my son before applying for SSI? He's 19.
Again,
Take that,
I'm
Judge.
doing that legal answer. It depends. So I have a lot of questions, because at 19, you're applying for SSI. Is there a reason why we didn't do it beforehand? Do we have that diagnosis that we need? There's a lot of questions with that. So again, I was focused on, is my child able to care for himself or herself? And what all help do we need? And so early intervention is your key, because the earlier that you start, then you'll be able to see where you are as the child gets older. And
also the judge is right, but just from a parent's perspective, because I've had other friends who have family members who had the same issue. And like I said, once they start getting that check, like, you won't even be able to cash it. The bank will not even allow you to do that. It has to be them. So if they can't, walk into a bank and sign their name to deposit a check, then that won't be able to happen. So that is an important piece of the guardianship, but so think about that piece of it as well.
And can I just add one more thing? Someone put in a chat box about some of the signs for autism. One thing about the African American community is sometimes we overlook things. Okay, we overlook things. We see things that our kids are doing, and we say, "Oh yeah, they're going to catch up. Oh yeah, they're fine." You need to pay attention to your child. Okay, you should never compare your child to someone else, but some of the things that you look for early on is your child talking? I know Miss Evans, I'm pretty sure she deals with this all the time, but is your child talking? Is your child looking at you in the eye when they're speaking? Are they understanding the things that you're saying? Are they rolling over when all the other kids are rolling over? Are they walking on time? So some of those things are early signs. And sometimes we as African Americans, we miss those because we just say, oh yeah, they're going to catch up. But you can start these services. You can start them at 8 and 9 months. And sometimes we get left behind and we're starting services at 15 and 16 years old when we should have been starting services when they were 2. And I'm not sure if you guys want to piggyback off that.
I would love to add to that. Everything that the judge said was 100% correct. And even if there's a question such as, should my child be doing this, or should I have him evaluated? A lot of facilities will offer free screenings. I know at Puzzle Piece Kids, we do offer screenings. We offer to sit and speak with the parent about concerns to see if an evaluation is even the right thing to do at that time. So it's not just, yes, something's wrong or something's not wrong. There's a lot of education that's there and resources that are there, professionals that are there for you to have conversations with, so that you can say, hey, is this something that I should be concerned about? Or is this something that we should be doing at home? So we can take a lot of the fear out of it. And with a screening will just let you know, hey, your child seems to be doing everything age appropriately, or hey, we would like to do more comprehensive testing. So it gives you more time to think about things. It gives you answers to some of your questions, and it lets you make the decision if it's time to start early intervention.
Right. And my mic was on mute, but yes, same thing happened with me. That question came about the age and some of the signs. And so lucky for me, Micah's mom had a family member who had autism, and so she had been around him all her life, so she was able to pick up on some of the things that the arm flapping and some of the humming and stimming and things like that. And so we knew to go and do that, and he was around 18 months old when we did so. But that's exactly right, where you actually have to be paying attention to your child, because oftentimes especially boys, they'll say that, oh, they just have a developmental delay. And when you hear that, that should be a red flag to you to watch your child more closely. And so if that development is not coming along, then you may want to then go the medical route as to try to find out. And I know it's hard to do so. Like she says, in the Black community, it's hard for us to go and say something wrong, especially men, to say, hey, something is wrong, and we try to be strong and act like it doesn't happen. But you should definitely be watching and you should be looking at those things and start early. And like you said, you know, I know a lot of people they didn't get a chance to start early because they didn't know. But now that you know or you have an idea, I would go full force in finding out every possibility and everything that I could do for my kid. Because again, nobody's going to advocate for them like you are.
Okay, so I think we have exhausted all of the questions in our chat box here. So I will do a social media plug really quick, and then I will let the chapter of our president come on and give us some goodbye greetings.
Please follow us on all of our social media platforms. This presentation will be uploaded to our YouTube page within the next couple of weeks. Subscribe to our channel to be notified of when it's available, as well as future projects.
Thank you, Ms. Crooks. I'd like to first thank everyone for attending tonight. This was an informative discussion. Thank you to our international partnership, Micah's Voice, the Honorable Judge Danielle Diaz, Ms. Natalie Evans, Mr. Frankie Lloyd, and our amazing committee for organizing this webinar. Thank you all so much for attending, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.